wabana ni wetu yoshiwana na wina kobe okuhungira ohungano mamwino woye kokushaura tuyinjio ikele FM ikaonje ko mulungu no mekulisiro woshiwana matuhepa oluyametoroye mushimbesho bina bibali na imbi heri ombili harukwao shimwe omaongole wolombudhe nonjibisiro na wina inji on demokrasia ihe mupranga wayo hinda ombatoro ye yodorande ethere no iwaeleta on blue waeleta po isi waeleta konomo orange onora ohambonda to imwe ombali olonora mbali oine oimwe oloine mbali miaro kana nombo orange lukwao onora ohambonda tu oimwe ombali olonora mbali oine oimwe oloine mbali po hinda no EFT po shita o stop order ko Eagle Media House kombanga njo kamuti FNB on branch ko utenji ombali ohambondatu onora oimwe ohambombali ombali moshomithe miarka no branch ko utanjo ombali ohambondatu onora oimwe ohambombali ombali moshomithe wakaon namba kumuhitiza shimaliba oyonji ohambo umwe ombali mbali ohambo mbali oimwe mbali olonora ndatu oine ondatu onomora mumuhitiza oshimaliba ku FNB oyonji ohambo umwe olombali mbali ohambo mbali oloimwe mbali olonora ndatu oine ondatu ungulisa oemaila po onomora yoye osho o reference yoye
Eagle FM, the eye.
And a very good afternoon to you. Welcome to the number one talk radio station, Eagle FM Namibia. Sally J in studio on the brand Conversation, and I hope that you were doing good. I hope that your day of love went very well. I hope it was lovely, and I hope that you also did your part of spreading love to those who need it. Now, today we are having a discussion about what can we learn from rejection in business. Now, when you think about it, in our minds, I'm sure we all understand that we'll experience rejection in our lives, especially as we are building our businesses or as we are building our brands or our careers. But, when it happens, and I was having a conversation with my colleague, and he was saying that, I can't handle rejection. I don't think anybody really can. And especially when it happens, it's a completely different scenario. Whether it's a tiny rejection or a major bump in the road, it's very easy to get lost in that overwhelming feeling of losing something or loss. One rejection can easily lead to days or more of ignoring even tasks while you are maybe binge watching, or, they say that African people, or actually I think they said black people in general, when we are stressed, we go and take a nap. But if you are taking action on accomplishing your goals, then you will experience rejection constantly. And if you aren't, then I think we have to start asking ourselves if we are actually taking big enough steps. Because they say that growth happens when you step outside of your comfort zone to do the things that scare you. And in that place, rejection is definitely possible. So today we're going to, find things to do when you experience rejection, even if it's taking a moment to scream, which we're not going to do now. But I'm here to remind you today, as we're having this discussion, that you are a human being. You can try bottling all those feelings and emotions inside, but good luck with that strategy, hey? Because at some point, you are going to explode, and probably in a situation that you will regret. So I'm here to let you know that we are going to be having this discussion about rejection. I want you to be honest with yourself about how that makes you feel, how it, what is that experience for you? What are some of those emotions? So we're really going to have quite an interesting discussion today. You're more than welcome to join in. That is on 083-288-401. I'd love to hear from you in terms of what can we learn from rejection? What have you learned from rejection? How does it make you feel? Are you the type of person who doesn't know how to handle such emotions, or are you someone that is so calm? If you are the calm person, please come through and give us your strategy as to how do you make it work. How do you handle rejection? Let's quickly pay the bills and then I will be back to give you more. Stick around.
Xiwana xa Namibia na nangechepa veshe monoli no moshilongo wa shishe otanshivifira kucha pena manufactures ongechepa tadika monjila ya katana moshakati mekuku industrial area okwa kutwifa ufila wepungu wonjo kamana no havala ndifa pa wholesaler anangechepa ile ni milandelo ufila weni wonjo kamana tawadika mo 10 kg 20 kg 50 kg ufila to parifa landave ude omjo dingi tenga ke no mola edi konora itatu nano hamano nano nola mbali no yari ile konora hamano nano mbali oyumomoi natuno heari pena manufactures ongechapata yadika monjilo nene yakatana moshakati industrial area nota twifa ufila wepungu wonjo kamana batalela ponena.
To our valued listeners and all Namibians, we are living in unprecedented times which have seen some extraordinary steps being taken, some of which have suspended the most basic of human rights.
And this is because for the first time ever since our country won its independence, we have been hit by a dangerous virus, which is a threat to our livelihoods, the COVID-19.
The situation calls for us not to panic, but to work together and eradicate the spread of the virus. At Eagle FM, we urge you to always wash your hands with soap or use hand sanitizers,
limit or avoid travel and respect our laws and obey authority.
We have the answer, and we will fight this the Namibian way. As Namibians, together as one Namibia, one nation. Let's stand together against COVID-19.
Ten minutes past 12 o'clock, and if you're just joining in, good afternoon to you and welcome to the Brand Conversation. Today, I want us to talk about what can we learn from rejection. Are there any benefits from rejection? Is there anything positive that we can take away from rejection? Now, it is a true story that I think we have all been through it, right? Anyone who has experienced rejection, I'm sure you know that feeling of being dismissed. Whether it's a passover from your boss for the promotion you've worked so hard for, or abandonment from your romantic partner on Valentine's Day that leaves you brokenhearted. But it can all be challenging to manage. Some situations even leave us so traumatized. But however, rejection as a whole can really have a positive effect on how we choose to live our lives if used constructively. And I know, as much of a cliche as it is, rejection can make us stronger and it can build character. I'm interested in hearing from you in terms of what lesson did you learn from rejection? Did it make you stronger? Did it make you more emotional? Did it make you, even more sensitive? What exactly are the lessons that we can learn from rejection? Because one thing is for sure, is that you can't avoid rejection. At some point, we all experience that dismissal of maybe our affection or our ideas. And while you can't avoid it, you can definitely embrace it. We can definitely learn how to reshape rejection, especially when you are an entrepreneur, especially when you are, building your career or starting your business. Because an entrepreneur, if you look at it by definition, it is someone who ventures out alone, right? To start a business, knowing that they may risk a loss to make money and, of course, achieve that success. So, yes, the nature of the entrepreneurial journey, it means that rejection is an obstacle that you will encounter. Even as you are coming out of university, rejection is something that you will have to encounter. People choose that entrepreneurial life for various reasons, right? I think many people's why for starting business was, you didn't want to fit your business ideas into a framework that maybe wasn't the right size for your goals. I know for myself, I want to create something that is wholly mine, not bent and twisted into something that I didn't recognize by others, but really creating my own original thing, which I believe every person wants to do, right? So when we are looking at rejection, we have to look at, is your fear of rejection holding you back? What is that number one fear holding you back from taking your business to the next level or taking your brand to the next level. And I know a lot of people have that fear of rejection. So I'm really looking forward to sharing some information with you. I actually have a short little talk that I want us to listen to coming up right now. And it's about rejection. It's about what to do when that feeling comes, what to do, especially when it is something that you really wanted for yourself. I want us to have this really quick discussion. So here is a gentleman called Daryl Stinson, and he's going to be talking about overcoming rejection when people hurt you and life isn't fair. Let's hear what he has to say.
Rejection. Do you remember the last time you felt rejected? Was it a guy that never returned a phone call? Or a father that never came around? Was it a boss who overlooked you for a promotion? Or maybe it was someone in your life who never thought you were good enough, no matter what you did to try to impress them. We all know rejection hurts. It stings. It makes us feel like we're not good enough. It causes us to question ourselves and doubt our future. I submit to you that rejection isn't something we should be afraid of. And it sure isn't something that should make us get discouraged, depressed, or work unhealthy amounts of hours just to prove to the world that we are somebody worth loving and paying attention to. Rather, rejection is our friend and not our enemy. I'm going to share 2 ways that we can see rejection in order to leverage those moments of pain to be the greatest catalyst to our success and proof of our value and uniqueness. The first way that we can view rejection is by seeing it as projection, a psychological projection. A psychological projection is when someone subconsciously employs undesirable feelings or emotions onto someone else rather than admitting to or dealing with their own unwanted feelings. When we can see how the rejections we face may have more to do with another person's inward turmoil and not our own value, our lives will change. Rather than shrink back, get discouraged, or play it safe, we'll move forward in life with confidence and high esteem. One of my most painful moments of rejection happened when I was in the 3rd grade. I wanted to be popular, to be liked, to be loved, and to be respected. And thankfully I was. I was in an advanced learning class, which meant that I was one of 2 black students in an all-white class. And this wasn't a bad thing. I was known as the cool big black kid. They called me Goon. I was one of the smartest kids in the class. People cheated off my tests. They laughed at my jokes. Life was great. Until one day, as I was returning back to class from a bathroom break, I noticed a group of black students circled together, laughing hysterically. Me being the confident, charismatic, outgoing guy that I was, I decided I was going to go over to them and get in on the jokes. So I walked over to these students and I said, "Hey, y'all, what's so funny?" No one answered. I spoke up. "Man, what y'all over there laughing about?" And just as I was finishing my sentence, one of the guys in the group turned towards me and said, "You're what's funny, white boy." The crowd erupted in laughter, and I, feeling embarrassed, ashamed, and rejected, returned to my class to soon learn that I was known in our school as the black kid that talks and acts white. I allowed that moment of rejection to diminish my confidence and my self-esteem. Rather than celebrate my own uniqueness, I began a long journey of changing who I was to fit in with this black community. I changed the way that I dressed, the way that I talked, the music I listened to. I even changed the way that I laughed. I started skipping school, selling drugs, and making poor decisions, all because I wanted to gain their approval and their acceptance. And you know what? It worked. They accepted me. They embraced me. I got street cred. But deep down inside, I knew it wasn't me who they accepted. It was who I was pretending to be. And the more they adored this false version of me, the more rejected the real me felt the entire time. You see, I didn't understand that sometimes rejection is projection, a projection of someone's own fears and insecurities onto another person. Those students who made fun of me were deeply insecure. They were unsure of themselves. They were afraid to do anything outside of what their peers thought was acceptable. And because they didn't know how to be their unique selves, they projected their fears and insecurities onto me in the form of mockery and jokes. Because sometimes talking bad about others makes people feel better about themselves. If I would have been able to see their rejection as projection, I would have never taken their jokes personally. I wouldn't have wasted years of my life trying to earn their approval and their acceptance. I would have stayed true to who I was, and I probably would have felt more sorry for them than I was for myself. And I believe that properly handling rejection is a crucial component to ending the rising anxiety, depression, and suicide rates in our nation and world. In fact, one study from the Oxford Handbook of Social Exclusion stated that rejection is both a cause and a consequence of depression. I mean, think about it. Have you ever felt down after you got rejected? Maybe it was a group of coworkers who invited everyone out for drinks after work, except for you. Or what about people who won't invest their money into your vision and dream? Those are situations that cause people to dislike themselves, give up, gain a ton of weight from emotional eating, and binge watch Netflix. But I've learned that we don't have to allow rejection to make us do that crazy stuff. We can leverage our moments of rejections to produce confidence and success. I did. Once I discovered that the rejection I faced in the 3rd grade was actually a projection of those students' own issues, I was able to see the beauty in my own difference. Honestly, they had something right about me. I was the black kid that talked and acted white, and I still am. Being the black kid that talks and acts white has enabled me to be versatile as a speaker and work with people from all different walks of life. I can speak to gang members in the street, and I can speak to executives in the boardroom. I can help addicts live free from addiction, and I can coach elite athletes to discover their purpose beyond sports. The very thing that made them reject me has become a crucial component to my success and has made me effective at helping others. And it's all because I learned to see rejection as projection and figured out how to use it for my good. The second way that we can see rejection is by viewing it as protection. Protection from something or someone that isn't meant to be in our lives anymore. I learned this lesson after life rejected my dreams of playing in the NFL. I went to Central Michigan University on a full-ride scholarship to play Division I football. Sports was the way that I was going to become rich and famous so that I could buy my parents a house and get all of my family out of poverty. I had so many coaches and players who told me that because of my height, my speed, and my athleticism, that there was no doubt that I would one day play in the NFL. Unfortunately, I ruptured a disc in my back my freshman year, and this injury ended my college career. Life had rejected all that hard work I put in. Rather than view my sports injury as protection from a career path that wasn't the best for me, I took it personal. I felt like life hated me and spit in my face. I felt like the universe despised me and that my value was pretty much nothing without the sport that I loved or the recognition that I got from being an athlete. Rather than let sports go, I did something terrible in an attempt to keep my athlete dreams alive. I signed a liability waiver and rehabilitated my body to once again play Division I football. I put my body through 2 years of drug addiction, pain, and sleepless nights because I couldn't face life on life's terms. No matter how many painkillers I took or how many epidural shots I got in my back, I couldn't avoid the reality that my career was finished. Nothing I did to avoid that rejection was working. I was so afraid to face rejection because I felt like it meant that I had no value and no future. I figured that since life completely rejected me and all the hard work that I put in to become a professional athlete, that I didn't just fail, but rather that I was a failure. This belief that I was a failure drove me into one of the darkest depressions of my life. I became suicidal because I thought it would be better to end my life than to deal with another painful moment of rejection. And so I would swallow whole bottles of pills in hopes that I wouldn't wake up the next day. I would get drunk and take a bunch of drugs and get in the car and drive, hoping that a car accident would end it all. It got so bad that I tried to starve myself, and I went from 275 pounds to 219 pounds in 4 weeks. It's all because I didn't understand how to handle rejection. All these attempts at suicide landed me in the psychiatric unit in Detroit, Michigan. And it was there that I had a life-changing experience that gave me hope and purpose and helped me to believe that maybe the rejection I was experiencing was protection from a future that wasn't the best for me. And that maybe there was a career and a life out there for me that was far better than what I had envisioned. So I spent the next few years researching everything I could find on purpose and meaning. I read books, I took online courses, I interviewed people, I prayed, I meditated, I even watched a bunch of TEDx talks. I started to develop new skills and explore new interests. You know what? Over time, I built a life that I loved and even enjoyed more than my life as an athlete. And I would have never been able to do that if it wasn't for life completely rejecting, or should I say, protecting me from becoming a professional athlete. And I believe that the world needs to have the same perspective shift that I had when I was in the psychiatric unit. Rather than internalize rejection to mean that we're less valuable or that our future is unsure, we should view it as protection from something or someone that isn't meant to be in our lives anymore. Imagine what would happen if we stopped viewing rejection as a negative, humiliating force, and we started viewing rejection as a necessary development tool and a catalyst for massive success. When I look at people who I admire that have been highly successful in life, I can't help but to notice how they've overcome rejections they face. It causes me to wonder if they would have ever become who they were if it wasn't for how they leveraged their moments of rejection. I mean, I wonder if Martin Luther King Jr. would have ever become a great leader if it wasn't for the rejection he experienced from his message and his mission. I wonder if Michael Jordan would have ever developed the drive to become one of the greatest basketball players of all time if it wasn't for being rejected by his coach in high school. I wonder if Apple would be one of the largest tech companies in the world if it wasn't for Steve Jobs being rejected by his own company. More importantly, though, I wonder what your life would look like if you went back to your moments of rejection and rather than cry, get angry, or bitter, you analyze those moments and reframe them as protection or projection. I wonder if buried beneath your pain and unfortunate circumstances is treasure that you could cash in. I wonder if you'd find keys that would unlock new paths in life that are far beyond what you can think or imagine. I wonder if the next level of your success is locked beneath your most painful moment of rejection. I started by asking you, when was the last time you felt rejected? Was it a boss, an ex-spouse, a parent, a friend, or just bad luck? And I'll end by asking you, what are you going to do with it? Thank you. You've been awesome.
Speak your mind while respecting the opinions of others.
How can you say Namibia was brought on a silver platter when so many people were massacred?
No, that's not what I mean. Mm-hmm. I mean on the silver platter.
In terms of the infrastructure.
Of the infrastructure. Mm-hmm. You know, there were schools, there were roads, there were...
Be part of the debate by setting the agenda.
To grab that victory against Ivory Coast will be a big one for us. It will be the first.
For social position to raise a child, what does that mean? Baby dumping.
Eagle FM lets you talk.
The commander say hold fire, they hold fire. When the commander says fire, they fire. You know, they are trained to kill. We are trained to arrest people and bring them before court.
Eagle FM lets you express your constitutional rights of freedom of expression without fear of favor.
That's why some of us wear unbranded clothes because it's about selling their product.
So talk on Eagle FM. Eagle FM, the eye.
Yeah, boy. All right, it is 12:30. That was just a short little talk on overcoming rejection. You know, there's plenty of information out there on what it is like to, be an entrepreneur. But everyone, of course, has their own unique experience, right? But I think there is one universal truth for anyone on life's journey is that every single one of us will face rejection. Rejection is so unavoidable. It's such an unavoidable part of life for anyone who is out there taking risk and putting themselves out into the world. And entrepreneurs will put themselves out there a lot. Those that are building a brand, those that are building a career, whether you are networking at the conferences or pitching to investors or selling your product. So if you have faced a lot of rejection or you have a strong fear of it, how are you going to move past it? So I'm here to give you some tips today. I'm here to give you enough information so that we can start dealing with rejection as a pro, of course, and growing in the process. Now, they say the best advice that you can give to someone is that you need to expect the best but prepare for the worst. I think we've all heard that saying over and over, right? So facing rejection in a poised manner has a lot to do with your state of mind. So I'm here to remind you that the next time that you have a meeting coming up, practice the mindset that you expect the absolute best to happen. Maybe the investor will love your business proposal and they'll be immediately interested. However, I also want you to be okay and see the positive if the meeting doesn't go well. Because at the end of the day, not everyone can love your ideas or will feel connected to you as a person. But that's fine, right? Because there will be plenty of other people who do. The other tip that's also really important before we get to our next talk is to ask for feedback. I think a lot of us struggle with asking for feedback because, there's that level of stubbornness, there's that level of pride, there's that level of ego that is so attached that it is holding a lot of people back from growing. So asking for feedback, even if you have been turned down, don't be afraid to ask for feedback from that person who rejected you. Because when you do this, most people will respect your grace, they will respect your upfront attitude, and I think they will also be very happy to help. So yes, oftentimes you will find that, it is nothing about you or your proposal. Maybe it was just bad timing or a mismatch. Or on the other hand, maybe you are actually learning something that you should improve. But either way, I'm saying that receiving feedback can clear your mind and it can also help you to move forward better. Now, when it comes to radio, it's very important for us to kind of remove ourselves. Sometimes you'll get someone that calls in and be like, Sally, I don't know what you're talking about today. Or, Sally, I don't like the way that you presented. And, it's so easy to reply back with, attitude, to reply back with a negative mindset and feel like you are being attacked. But when it comes to asking for feedback, you are actually growing. That's why I always used to say in the beginning when I worked at Eagle FM that if my Oshuambo is going to be bad, I'm going to blame each and every single one of you listening because of the fact that you're not teaching me. You're not guiding me in the right direction. So when you're laughing at someone, instead of giving them feedback, you actually take them 10 steps back. So it's a lot of learning that we have to do when it comes to rejection. And it is very important for everyone to have mentors, especially as an entrepreneur, a role model or a mentor. And if you look at it, hey, after getting rejected, it's important for you, like I said, take time to get advice or vent to a mentor of yours because every single mentor will be able to relate with a similar experience, right? And they say they've never been, and if they say that they've never been rejected, then I don't think that person is really being fully honest. So keeping in touch with your network in this manner will be important for improving your relationships and improving your business or improving your brand. I think the best part that I can also say when it comes to rejection is that it is part of entrepreneurship. I think in our minds, we all understand that we'll experience rejection in our lives, right? And like I said, whether it's a tiny rejection or a major bump in the road, we have all experienced rejection. So now coming up is a lady called Magna Gopal. She's going to be talking about the benefits of rejection. Because too often we are looking at rejection as a negative thing, but we are not looking at it in the sense that, what can I learn from this? What is the hidden opportunity behind the rejection that I'm facing? Am I going to, be negative and feel like, nobody wants me, nobody understands me? Or am I going to find the opportunity in that rejection? So here is Magna Gopal with the benefits of rejection.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's exciting to be here. Before I start, I'd like to ask all of you two simple questions. With a show of hands, how many of you have wanted something and tried to get it by asking for it? Great, that's all of us. Now keep your hands up if you have gotten everything that you asked for. Yeah, that's what I thought. None of us. So we're at least on the same page. We have all had some of our requests refused. Or to put it in terms of my talk today, we have all experienced rejection. Rejection is pervasive throughout our lives. I remember as a child, I was always refused second servings of dessert. I've had school applications and job applications rejected. I've asked to go out on dates and been turned down. And I've even asked for help from friends and sometimes been ignored. Rejection exists everywhere, including in my industry. My career involves traveling the globe, teaching people how to connect through salsa dancing. Not sure how many of you are familiar with the dance, but for most of us, the image that comes to mind is one of fun, passion, and lots of smiles. It's also a great environment to experience a lot of rejection, and it's actually where I learned the most about it. When I first started dancing, I used to get asked to dance a lot. Could have been because I was always bubbly and smiling, or maybe just because I was a new face on the block. Either way, I was always on the dance floor with very little effort of my part. Eventually, however, people realized that I was an absolute beginner with zero technique, and dancing with me was a little bit more pain than pleasure. So naturally, the request to ask me to dance declined. And if I wanted to dance, I had to be the one asking. Now, it's nerve-wracking, especially as a beginner, not knowing anyone, to work up the courage and ask someone to dance. It was even harder if that person happened to be surrounded by all of their cool friends. And then the hardest part was finally asking and hearing no. Now maybe you're thinking, so what, Magna? You said it yourself. We've all experienced rejection. We've all heard the word no. What makes dance so different? And you're partially right. But let's take the example of getting rejected from a job or a date. The chances of us asking again within seconds are pretty slim. Most likely, a few days, weeks, or even months will pass before we make another attempt. Partner dancing, on the other hand, takes rejection to a whole new level. Nowhere have I experienced as much rejection as I have in dance. Let me take you through a typical night out to try and explain. I would usually go out dancing for about 3 or 4 hours. The average song lasts 5 minutes, so that's about 12 songs in an hour. I, of course, wanted to dance to all of them, but initially I was getting rejected at least half the time, which meant 6 rejections in just 1 hour. And sometimes, if I really wanted to dance to a particular song, I would ask until I got on the dance floor, which sometimes meant 3 or 4 rejections within the first 30 seconds of a song. Those numbers are ridiculous. I can't think of any other aspect of life where you have that many rejections in that short of a time. Well, maybe telemarketing? I don't know, but even then. Now, the problem with rejection is not so much in the word no. It's the way it makes us feel. Think about the last time you were rejected from something. How did you feel? Were you tense? Did your heart sink into your stomach? Did you feel defeated and worthless? Now take that feeling and multiply it by the numbers and the frequency of rejections I was receiving, and you might have an idea of how low I felt. Of course, my initial reaction to this experience was, this sucks, I'm going to pretend it never happened. But dance doesn't afford that luxury. Because if you wanted to improve, which I clearly did, you had to keep on dancing. And in order to dance, you had to keep on asking, which basically meant every 5 minutes, you had to set yourself up for another potential rejection. And it took me some time to realize that rejection was like any other experience in life. There were lessons to be learned and opportunities for growth. I just had to find them, but I couldn't do that if I kept on pretending it never happened. So I revisited some of those experiences. And the first lesson I learned was to not take rejection personally. Even if it was personal, against my level of skill at that moment, it said nothing about my ability to improve and be better in the future. The second lesson I learned was to take each request I made and each rejection I received like a case study and analyze it and refine my technique for asking. How I asked, when I asked, and whom I asked. I ended up learning a lot more about myself and how to read people. And what I found was, when I took rejection personally, I was hurt and I was disappointed. Sure, maybe my first and second rejections were full of enthusiasm with this big smile and a, "Hi, would you like to dance?" But after getting that smile, but after getting rejected a couple of times, I was dull and resentful. I had a look of misery on my face, and my requests sounded more like, "You want to dance? No? How about you? You want to dance?" Okay, maybe I didn't turn into Grumpy Cat. But needless to say, people were rejecting my negative energy well before I had a chance to ask them for anything. When I switched and stopped making it personal and focused instead on my goal of getting on the dance floor and having fun, my entire demeanor was much more positive and pleasant. I was confident and accepting of whatever answer I would receive. Add to that the fact that I no longer asked just anyone and everyone to dance, but I focused my efforts on asking people that seemed equally enthusiastic about getting on the dance floor. Well, you can guess, I ended up getting a lot more yeses. And this whole experience helped me redefine success as not just including the yes, but also including this learning process. And these two tools that I used, learning from it and not taking it personally, were invaluable, not only in my dance life, but also in my personal and professional life, in dealing with rejection. But there's a flip side. Clearly, if someone is receiving a rejection, someone is dishing it out. And I'm not sure about all of you, but as hard as it is for me to hear the word no, it's always been much harder for me to tell someone no. Because if saying no hurts, then I'm responsible for hurting someone. And since hurting someone isn't socially acceptable, I always had this feeling that rejecting someone wasn't either. Unfortunately, we live in this world where being agreeable is praised over being objectionable, where sacrificing your wants and desires are held in higher regard than standing up for them, where when I say yes, people call me a sweetheart, and when I say no, people call me a bitch. We feel entitled when asking and obliged when asked. In my dance community, it's no different. In fact, there's this unspoken expectation that if someone works up the courage and asks you to dance, you better honor it and say yes, no matter what, because rejecting them would have a negative impact on them. Sure, when I was doing all the asking, couldn't agree more. But when I improved and started being asked more often, I realized that saying yes could also have a negative impact. So I had to learn how and when it was important to say no. Unfortunately, my lesson came in the form of an injury. So a little bit of background information. My reputation in my dance community is one of this kind and sweet Energizer bunny who dances all night with everyone and almost never says no. But then I got injured, sprained ankle and broke my toe twice on the same foot. And despite the pain, my fear of losing my reputation outweighed any respect I had for my body. It was only after 3 years of being at suboptimal health that I realized if I didn't learn how to say no and take care of myself, I could cause permanent damage to my body. So finally learning how to say no helped me recover and get back into dance full force. So obviously this was a case where my rejection was a benefit to me. But there are plenty of occasions in dance where my rejection was also a benefit to someone else. As I mentioned before, salsa dancing is a social dance, which involves a lot of asking. And sure, there were times when I was on the fence when asked, but once I said yes, I ended up having a great time. But there were also times when I really didn't want to dance with the person that asked me. And whatever the reason, when I caved and I said yes, I ended up causing more harm than good. Because my heart and my mind were elsewhere. I was distracted. Sometimes I was even annoyed and resentful for feeling like I got sucked into doing something I didn't want to do. I might have been smiling, but it wasn't genuine. And I'm sure my body language revealed that. By avoiding eye contact, easily irritated, dismissive of my partner's enjoyment, and just not participating wholeheartedly. I treated my partner like a chore that I couldn't wait to finish. I know, that sounds harsh, but it's the truth. And I'd like to think that I'm a great person once you get to know me, but if that 5-minute introduction was all you had, I doubt you'd want to spend another minute in my presence. At least that's how I felt when I danced with someone like that. So these days, if I feel I can't be 100% present, I'd rather say no, because my partner deserves better than that. Now, these are examples in dance, but there are plenty of moments like this in life as well. Think about the time that you weren't feeling well, and you didn't want to go out, and your friends begged you to come out, and you said yes. Were you miserable and complaining, even if it was to yourself? Did you end up feeling worse the next day because you should have stayed home and rested? I know it's hard to say no, especially to those people that are close to us, but if we can't be our best, then why are we ruining their day also? Or how about that time you said yes to a second date with that person that you had zero interest in? It was all you had. I doubt you'd want to spend another minute in my presence. At least that's how I felt when I danced with someone like that. So these days, if I feel I can't be 100% present, I'd rather say no, because my partner deserves better than that. Now, these are examples in dance, but there are plenty of moments like this in life as well. Think about the time that you weren't feeling well, and you didn't want to go out, and your friends begged you to come out, and you said yes. Were you miserable and complaining, even if it was to yourself? Did you end up feeling worse the next day because you should have stayed home and rested? I know it's hard to say no, especially to those people that are close to us, but if we can't be our best, then why are we ruining their day also? Or how about that time you said yes to a second date with that person that you had zero interest in because you didn't want to be mean? Was it nicer to get their hopes up unnecessarily? Did you think that they wanted to spend their valuable time planning a special dinner only to have you sit there for 2 hours, revealing your lack of interest with your short replies and your frequent glances at your cell phone. If a 5-minute dance can have such an impact on us, what do you think the impact of a 2-hour dinner would be? Now, when we look at things this way, meaning when we look at the consequences of our words and our actions, I hope we can start to see where our responsibility lies in all of it and why it's important to say no sometimes. Our definition of rejection makes us think that we're delivering an insult when we say no. So I understand why there's hesitancy. But we can see that it can also come from a place of respect and consideration. Think of the examples I just mentioned. Would you rather receive an honest 2-second no or spend hours or more in the presence of a dishonest yes? Not sure about all of you, but painful as it may be, I would prefer the honesty. And honesty is important. It's crucial. But the actual line between respect and insult lies in the delivery. And the key to a good delivery is empathy. Whether we are receiving or delivering a rejection, we are dealing with human beings. Treating them with compassion, politeness, and respect makes it much easier for us to speak openly. And when we don't take or make things personal and are kind with our words, people are more receptive to what we have to say. We can't necessarily control their reaction to our rejection, but at least we can walk away with a clear conscience when we've taken extra care to be sensitive when delivering it. I know personally, switching from this attitude of entitlement and obligation to one of understanding and respect has significantly improved not only my dances, but also my relationships off the dance floor. I am more present now because I value other people's time and I take responsibility for my choices. I'm more generous because I know that at least I will respect my boundaries and my limits. And I'm kinder because I always engage from a place of empathy. It's empowering to take control of your yeses and your nos. And it's liberating to not feel obliged when asked and to not feel like a victim of rejection. And this comfort with saying no is fantastic. But getting comfortable with saying no is not so that we can walk out into the world rejecting new people and new experiences right, left, and center. It's just to enable us to be honest about what we want and what we can give at any particular moment. Rejection does not have to be this monster that we're scared to confront or scared to release. It is just an answer to a question, unless we define it differently. And compassion, empathy, resilience, these are all skills that we can develop. I've worked on them mainly through dance, but I get plenty of opportunities in life to do that as well. And so do you. So the next time you have to deal with rejection, don't take it personally. Try to learn from it. And the next time you have to deliver a rejection, be kind, respectful, empathetic, and know that your honesty in that moment is not an insult. It is the greatest sign of respect that you can show to yourself and to someone else. Now, before I wrap up, I would like to share a short poem that I had written. It was at the TEDx speaker workshop. We were asked to summarize the impact of our speech in a haiku. And I hope that these words will have an impact on you as well. Now we are both here, present and sincere. This is how we choose to live. Thank you very much.
Speak your mind while respecting the opinions of others.
But how can you say Namibia was brought on a silver platter when so many people were massacred?
No. That's not what I mean. I mean on the silver platter.
In terms of the infrastructure.
Of the infrastructure. You know, there were schools, there were roads, there were...
Be part of the debate by setting the agenda.
To grab that victory against Ivory Coast will be a big one for us. It will be the first.
For social position to raise a child, what does that mean? Baby dumping.
Eagle FM lets you talk.
The commander say hold fire, they hold fire. When the commander says fire, they fire. You know, they are trained to kill. We are trained to arrest people and bring them before court.
Eagle FM lets you express your constitutional rights of freedom of expression without fear of favor.
That's why some of us wear unbranded clothes. Because it's about selling their product.
So talk on Eagle FM. Eagle FM, the eye.
All right, that was a full-on lesson on rejection. You know, as I was listening to Ms. Magna speaking, you know, I was just thinking about, as an entrepreneur, as someone who is building a brand, that you've probably heard more than once, you know, to get used to rejection. But what does that really look like, you know? And more importantly, how do you deal with it? Rejection is something that comes in so many different forms, especially when you're starting a business or you're starting something new, whether it's looking for investment or building a team or even just trying to connect with your customers. I strongly believe that some of the best lessons that an entrepreneur or a career-going person can learn from, they are born from rejection. So today it was all about just sharing the lessons that we can learn along the way about dealing with rejection when it comes to your brand. You know, I'm sure you've heard that it's not you, it's me. Hearing those words is never a good sign, right? But you may not have expected to hear them as an entrepreneur. So not unlike a breakup, because that's really what I was thinking about, it's important for us to understand why rejection is happening. I think the first thing that we have to understand is who the rejection is coming from. Is this someone who is fit with your values and your vision? And if they aren't, then of course that rejection might have more to do with not being a great fit than your company not being successful. And I think that's a hard lesson to learn, that not everyone will be a perfect match. You know, your company or your brand isn't going to appeal to everyone. And understanding exactly who you are trying to appeal to as investors, employees, customers, that can really help us deal with rejection from those who just don't fit. If you are, somebody who's very serious about their brand like me, then I can guarantee you that you aren't an expert on everything, right? You are going to receive rejections from people who have a lot more experience than you. And, with any luck, those rejections will come with feedback. So I hope that you start paying attention to it. Understanding where your blind spots as an entrepreneur, as a career person, are what will allow you to gauge not only what feedback to focus on, but what steps need to be taken. So if you aren't a design expert, but your rejections often come with feedback about the look and feel of your business, then you recognize that they may be right after all. So know what you don't know and use that to deal with the rejection. Build a team and also become an expert. They say while it's true that rejection is a constant part of entrepreneurship, building a career, it's also true that good entrepreneurs just never give up. I was reading a story about Elon Musk yesterday, and it said that when he was getting started, he applied for a job with the top internet browser at the time. And you know what? He didn't even get a response. But look at it. Years later, that company is no more. And Elon Musk is worth over, I think it's like $22 billion. So yes, rejection is part of entrepreneurship, ladies and gentlemen. It's the best reminder that entrepreneurship is part of the process. But I see somebody's joining us on the line. Eagle FM, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Sally. How are you?
I'm okay, my uncle. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you. It's good. Thank you very much for helping us to discover our potential. Many a times we give up when we don't realize our potential, our best.
That's true.
So therefore, we crowd ourselves with things that have got no really serious consequences for our life.
That's true.
So because we tend to push that one away, and there's no way, because we know our needs, we know our aspirations, we know our strengths and energies and everything.
That's true.
The moment we say, no, I cannot do this, I cannot do this, that kind of inability, that will put us seriously down.
So true,
we need to start preaching the language of empathy, the language of some kind of serious motivation.
That's true, my uncle.
To stir up our inner whatever, I don't know what kind of thing.
I hear you.
So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Uncle
entrepreneurs and everybody, let's start doing something on our own.
So true.
So otherwise we will be defeated by the fears and the force of the fears and the devil.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Uncle Wana. Thank you, you too. All right, it is about that time for me to say my see you laters, but I just want you to remember to not get discouraged. Don't let the rejection of your proposal or your pitch get you down. Just like taking rejection personally, getting depressed or disheartened, like it creates a downward spiral that gets you nowhere. And moreover, I'm here to remind you, don't get angry at the investors because they said no to your pitch or your proposal. Getting offended by rejection can cause you to say things to a target that might come back to haunt you later on. Let's take one more call. Eagle FM, good afternoon. Come on, no, Sally. But nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for me to say my see you laters and make way for the rest of the team. I'm excited for tomorrow. We have a psychologist coming in, and we are going to be having a discussion about the effects of debt on your mental health. So stay tuned for On the Radar.
If we were not a reliable and trustworthy medical aid service provider, we might have told